Hi, this is Derek Henry with Accelerate Consulting, and in this quick video we're going to talk about something really impactful. How to automate things you do on the internet, which might be a little ironic given what you're seeing on the screen, Googling how you can automate things on the internet. This is probably the most impactful thing that's been added to the Accelerate add-in suite since it was first launched a couple years ago. Now, how this works is Excel actually controls this. Now we're going to walk through how that works in a couple of minutes, but before you can use this, a couple of things you need to make sure you have going on. One is you got to have the add-in installed. So to check what version you have, it needs to be version 1.3.5 or later. Go to the Accelerate ribbon in the productivity section, license, and check Accelerate version. Now, mine's up to date, as you can kind of see down here in the little menu. If it's not up to date, it's going to prompt you and give you a link to get the most recent version. So check that out, make sure you've got that, and there'll be plenty of other fun things probably since you last upgraded it. The other thing you're going to want to do is look at within your VBA. Now you don't have to do this. When you follow the instructions on the accompanying article to this video, this will happen for you. But if you just want to check, go to Tools, References. There is a Selenium type library reference that gets installed that makes this all work. It exposes all of the web stuff to be able to be controlled by Excel. Don't worry about whether it's checked or not. The macro will do that for you. Once you have those things, a couple other steps. It's well worth it. It's quick. It's easy. If you struggle with that, there are plenty of resources for you, or just reach out to us. Once you have everything in place, you can make this work. Now, to do it, the easiest way I find is using the macro search box. So to run that, press Control Shift and W, and then just type in part of the macro name. In this case, it's Run Browser Steps. So type in any part of that name, it'll show up. Press the arrow keys and then run it. Now what it'll do the first time is create the sheet you're going to need to run this. Much like all the other bulk task macros that are driven by a sheet like this, it's looking for this exact sheet, run_browser_steps. If it doesn't find it, it adds it for you. And everything you need is right here. All the fields you need to enter, they all have column header comments behind them so you can see what it's required, what's optional. And then if there's a drop-down list, what the values are you can enter, etc. Now I've already filled this out, so I'm going to delete this sheet. Just know that that's where your starting point might be. I've got one over here. I'm going to rename that so we can actually run it. And here's what we're talking about. What URL do you go to? What action do you want to perform? What value do you want to enter or just click something? And what thing do you want to interact with? So there are various ways you can kind of do that. And this is a good example of them. And in notes over here to the side, where do you want to go? What should it be doing? Just so you're documenting what's going on. And then everything else. So we're going to run this and watch what it does. Now it's literally going to run all the steps we've told it to do. So we're going to click the proceed button. If you got a lot of steps that you're doing, you might want to think about that because it's going to take over Excel for a few minutes if there's a lot of steps. So we click proceed and it literally is going to launch a web browser and it's going to perform the steps we ask it to. So here's this website that we're going to. It's going to click a couple of links and it's going to fill out a feedback form for us. Now, I'm not touching any of these things. It is filling all these things out for us just based on the instructions we gave it. Now, it also paused. Okay, one thing I want to take note of is pause here can either specify some number of seconds to wait because it might take a while to process some animation or something, or if you wanted to pause indefinitely, put a -1 there and it will show you this note because it might be waiting on you to do something like log in. In this case, I wanted to pause because the other thing it can do besides click and fill stuff in is it can retrieve data. What we said here is to retrieve the text, right? So here's what we're going to do, text, from this particular element. And it came up with the text behind here. And it used that to fill this in. So you know how some of these goofy CAPTCHAs and bot checks are here? It literally found the 3 + 11, and then there's a formula here to reference that. And so it knows to then fill in 14, okay? It's also pausing to make sure that, we need to review anything. So then you can submit manually, or if you wanted to, you could even make that a part of the steps. So that's what this is doing. Right, so we can press OK. Let's say there's something else that happens. It's going to show you how many actions happened, how many were skipped, how long it took to run, just so you can kind of benchmark that, right? And that's what it does. It just does it a lot faster than you or I could do it manually. And you can build this in based on references and conditional formulas and all kinds of things, a lot like I've got in another example here. This is an expense report that I built because I was tired of doing the same steps every single month when not much changed. Really, the main thing that changed was the date. But in this one, I've got a list of all the expenses I wanted to fill out. Those are then linked into the browser steps. A lot of these are based on these formulas that have lookups and all kinds of conditionals to apply. And it would run through all these steps in just a couple of minutes, whereas it would take me 20 or 30 to do it manually because I got to go reflect on, how did I do this last month? I forgot. Did I miss anything? Did I capture everything? That kind of stuff. This is doing it for you. Now, as you're building these, you might be a little bit overwhelmed. Oh, I've got to figure out all these things. It's actually pretty easy. So what you're going to do is go into a website that you're trying to fill in. Here, let's go into one I was opening earlier. And let's say we want to fill in this particular input field. So if you're using Chrome, which is what this is built for, by the way, click Inspect when you right-click it, and it will go straight to this item, see the input, all the stuff here, and you can either use the ID or the input or some other attribute. There are various ways on how you would actually figure out what that should be, right? And there's a lot of tips in the article that accompanies this, a lot of references, that the same kind of things I had to look for to figure this stuff out. But that's all you're really doing. So if you have a whole bunch of these and they're used repetitively, like if you're entering a bunch of transactions in an expense report, these tend to be the same. You don't have to recreate the wheel. You just have to loop through it several times. The macro will do that for you. Now, if you have any questions about how this works, please reach out to us, but just think of the possibilities. Expense reports, if you're going out and you're running a lot of reports for many locations or for many variables or something like that, teach this to do it for you. And then if it needs to download a file, then we can use other macros to reference those files and do other stuff. But based on the responsibilities that I've had in my past, this would have saved hundreds and hundreds of hours, not just for me, but other people. So give it a try. If you have questions on it, please reach out to us. Otherwise, thanks for your time and have a great rest of your day.